Alright, this little quick how-to video. I'll be showing you how you can mount a newer GM, basically a 2-wire alternator onto your Dodge engine, onto your Chrysler. This is a 318. This block is a 1987. The other motor I was using is, I believe it was the late 70s. I forget exactly what year, but it should be the same on all these 318s and probably 360 motors. But my original Chrysler alternator went bad, and I had this good brand new remanned GM alternator laying around, and I would have, normally I wouldn't be putting a GM alternator on a Chrysler, but I like to save money. I'm cheap, whatever. But first thing you do, you take your lower bracket, and this is pretty common, lower alternator bracket on a lot of Chryslers. You take it and you cut this bracket off. You can see I cut it off on this one. You could cut it flush, grind it up, make it look pretty, and everything else. I don't care, you don't see it, as long as it works. And then on mine, I ground a whole bunch of material off here. So this my new lower bracket is maybe 1/4 of an inch. There's maybe 1/4 of an inch of material on here, which is still plenty enough. You still got this whole other side of the bracket, and it's good enough. I've driven this car around for a long time like this, and it works absolutely perfect. Then you go and you get like a grade 8 bolt that's maybe 5 or 6 inches long. This one is 6 inches long. I bet 5.5 or 5 inch would work fine. You can see I have just like a lug nut here and another bolt there just to kind of help shim it out, because it was a little bit too long and I was bottoming out in the block with this bracket. But it bolts right into this head bolt right there, and it'll pivot like that, and you can move this bracket down a little bit, and then you'll pry here, and that's how you'll get your tension for your belt. And you run your belt, and it actually will miss this pulley. I have a double pulley on here, and this belt actually misses it, and it runs perfectly underneath of the water pump, so it does not rub on the water pump once it's mounted. It goes right under it, and there's like half an inch of room once you get it all mounted. So you don't got to worry about it rubbing at all on there, on the bottom of your water pump housing. I'll even tell you the number here of the belt. It's a Gates XL 11A 1065. So that I'm using. And for you Dodge guys who may have never even touched a GM alternator, these are so simple to wire. I like these. I'd run it on anything I got. So you basically have a 1 and a 2, and the 2 can get just pigtailed over right to your 12-volt constant source, but the 1 on the alternator, you can run it to your ignition. I like to run mine into an idiot light. So this number 1 prong I'd run right into this wire up underneath the dash, and then this wire here I would run into my ignition switch. So when you first turn the key on, the light comes on, but when you crank the engine over and it's running, then the light goes off. And if the light ever comes on, maybe your alternator's going bad, or you spun your belt off of your alternator. But this works slick. Once you get it nice and tight and good enough, and you're using a grade 8 bolt, it doesn't bend. You don't get any wobble out of it. I have a bunch of washers in here and this sleeve. At one point on another engine, I actually had the perfect size piece of 3/4 steel pipe wedged in there perfectly. Once I knew I had it good where it wasn't making any noise and it would get tight enough, I measured here to there, and I just cut a nice piece of steel and that helped hold it really solid too. But yeah, once you get it pulled up in there, it doesn't make any noise. It doesn't squeak or nothing. I drove this car around for quite a while with this setup, and it worked great. Charged awesome. You know, these alternators about half the price, and you don't need an external regulator. So yeah, that's how you mount a GM alternator on your Chrysler. If you learned something, please like and subscribe. Thank you.